Hey everyone, this is Marcin from B.S Audio Tools, and today I want to show you my newest device called B.S ReSub. At its core, B.S ReSub is a combination of a pitch track oscillator and an envelope follower. As the name suggests, the main idea is to effortlessly generate a clean sub-bass for every input sound. Getting a sub that naturally sits below a sound, especially with more complex material, can be quite challenging, and this device takes care of that without having to draw in everything manually. But it's not limited to just sub-bass. Later in the video, I'll show you some creative use cases that go way beyond. If you're mainly here for the examples, feel free to skip ahead using the timestamps. That said, I encourage you to stick around for the full walkthrough, since knowing how the tool works is the best way to get the most out of it. Before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe. That way, you won't miss any future walkthroughs or devices, and it really helps other producers discover these tools too. Another quick note before we dive into the controls. Because B.S ReSub uses spectral processing, it does introduce noticeable latency. It's often a good idea to freeze or resample tracks that use it, and it might not be suited for live performance. If you're unsure whether this device is right for you, there's a free demo available on my Gumroad. Definitely give that a try before purchasing. So let's start with the probably most important parameter that makes the device work. The trust parameter controls how much you trust the pitch detection algorithm. The detector outputs a pitch and a confidence level shown by the blue arc. Low confidence pitch detections are often wrong, so the trust dial sets the threshold below which pitches are ignored. When a detection is invalid, ReSub holds the last valid pitch. Since the confidence level really depends on the input material, spend a moment dialing this in. It's crucial for accurate results. Let us quickly hear this in action with this respace. This is the bass without ReSub, and this is it with ReSub. And this is just the sub-bass with ReSub. As you can hear, when we have the trust value set very low, it often jumps around quite a bit, while it gets more consistent when we dial it up a bit. The smooth parameter acts like a pitch glide and can smoothen pitch changes. At 0, pitch tracking is the tightest. Increasing it makes transitions smoother and sometimes more natural. The drag parameter controls the release of the envelope follower. Low values keep things tight. Higher values let the sub ring out, which is especially nice for percussive basses in genres like tear out. The waveform selector morphs between basic shapes, adding harmonics as needed. The display next to it shows the currently selected waveform. If you couldn't hear all the overtones, like right now, this is most likely due to the filter section, which you can find right above the waveform selector. It consists of the synth low pass, which makes sure that the sub-overtones don't bleed into the original material, an input high pass, which high passes the incoming dry signal, as well as a shared crossover. By default, these are on to prevent clashes and phase issues with an existing sub-content. But depending on the use case, disabling them might be a good idea. I'll show you some useful examples later. Let's quickly disable the synth low pass and hear the waveforms again. The spectrum visualizer shows both the resynthesized signal in blue and the input in yellow, so you can always clearly see what is going on. Above the visualizer, we have two more pitch-related controls, warp and transpose. Warp has 3 different modes. In octave, it will wrap all the pitches into a single octave, great for locking subs into a clean range. Transpose then shifts the results up or down. The smart mode is quite similar. However, it leaves pitches that get detected inside the octave above the normal subrange untouched by wrapping everything else into the sub-octave. This can help to preserve some high accent notes for a more natural sound. Here the transpose will happen before the wrapping and lets you change which octaves get detected as accent notes and which ones get wrapped into the sub-bass range. Lastly, the non mode will not apply any wrapping at all and just transpose the sound directly. There's also a little plus icon up there, which lets you edit some more settings. We'll get to that in a second. But first, we'll have a look at the effects that are featured in B.S ReSub. On the bottom left, you'll find Emphasis, which is a spectral expander. It lowers quiet bands and boosts louder ones, giving the sound more definition. Also, Shaping imprints the input's spectral character onto the resynthesized signal. Frequency bands that are quieter in the input will be turned down in the resynthesized signal as well. This is quite close to how a vocoder works. It is also notable that the resynthesized signal is usually always in mono. However, with the stereo input, the shaping can add some stereo width, which is completely mono-compatible. There will be no shaping applied below 150 Hz to ensure that the subbass always stays mono. Of course, this only works with waveforms that already have some overtones. On the side, we also have the gain and mix knobs. Gain lets you adjust the level of the resynthesized signal, or it can also distort and drive it when pushed above 0 dB. Mix will blend between the original and the resynthesized signal. Quick reminder, if you're finding this breakdown useful, make sure to hit that like button. Now let's quickly take a look at the previously mentioned settings that we can access with the plus button at the top before we go over to some examples. Quantize locks the detected pitch to a chosen scale. You can sync it with Ableton's global scale or set your own. Keep in mind, quantization removes pitch bands, so smoothing is your friend here. With this purple button enabled, the device will follow whatever I set Ableton's global scale to. When I disable it, I can set the scale and the key in the device itself. We can also retune the dry signal. This applies pitch quantization to the original signal, turning ReSub into a kind of crude but creative autotune. On the bottom, we also have the high quality toggle. This ups the resolution of the emphasis, shaping, and retuning. It introduces more latency, but can sometimes provide better results. Now, let's check out some real examples. The first one is to add a clean subbass to pretty much anything. With the default settings, we just dial in the trust and mix knobs. This is how it sounds without the ReSub. And this is with the ReSub. Of course, this also works with other sounds. Pro tip, for more control, when we run ReSub in parallel and put the mix knob to 100%, we can add dedicated post-processing just for the subbass. In this example, I added the Corpus preset kick-tight to the subbass. Just make sure to remove any subbass on the other chain to avoid any phasing between the original sub and the newly generated sound from ReSub. Another cool use case is resynthesis. This works on a huge variety of sounds from vocals to basses or instruments. Make sure to set the mix to 100%, select a waveform that's harmonically rich, and disable the synth low pass. Now we can once again dial in the trust value to fit the input sound and play around with the emphasis and shaping knob until we're satisfied. We can also use B.S ReSub for some harmonic layering. For that, we keep the mix relatively low, turn off the synth low pass again, and dial in the trust as needed. We will set the warp mode to none and play around with the transpose. We can even use B.S ReSub to generate melodies from inharmonic material. For that, we set the mix to 100%, disable the low-pass filter, and adjust the trust value. Now we open the settings menu and enable the quantization for musical results. This is great for turning mud pies or even noise into tonal material. Then fine-tune the sound with the waveform, the smoothing, and the effects. We can even use B.S ReSub as a kind of retuning or autotune effect. For that, we set the mix to 0%, open the settings, and enable the retune dry option, and set our scale. Now, whatever we run through that will be quantized into that scale. It is a good idea to turn up the smooth for a better, more natural sound. While we can, of course, use this on vocals, you are usually better off using something like the stock auto shifter for that purpose, as it has more controls and generally sounds a bit better. But it really shines on basses, where you can flatten our pitch movements or lock frequency shifted sounds to a scale. That's it for the walkthrough of B.S ReSub. It's a deep device from adding subs to creating harmonics to turning random noise into melodies. If you know any more cool techniques you could use this device for, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend who could use an easier way to nail their subbasses. And if you're not sure yet, grab the free demo on Gumroad and try it for yourself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.